I was born in Vienna, Austria. I had a wonderful childhood. I had everything a child needs. Loving parents, that's a picture of my family. And I had a lot of aunts and uncles. Okay? I loved my school, had a lot of friends. And Vienna is a beautiful city and had a wonderful life. Hitler marched into Austria on March the 13th, 1938. They just welcomed him with open arms, and that was the end of my childhood, the way I knew it. Overnight, you become a non-person. You have no rights. Jews lived in Austria for hundreds of years. They were pillars of the community. I never felt any difference before. And overnight, people changed. That was so hard to understand. People disappeared. People left the house. They were beaten up or they never came back. Of course, then was Crystal Night, the night of the broken glass. That was in 1938. They came into our home, arrested my father, who ended up in Dachau concentration camp, helped themselves to whatever they want. Now, you'll think you called the police. You couldn't because they were one of them. There was absolutely nothing you could do. I remember my sister and I were hiding and were hoping that they're not going to hurt my mother. Hitler waited. How will the world react to what he has done? The world was quiet, so Hitler knew he can do what he wants to do, and he surely did it. My mother went from place to place to save her children. Right after Crystal Night, there was one country who had some compassion. That was England. Right after Crystal Night, they had a debate in Parliament. What could they do? And they decided to take in an unspecified number of children. They had to be under 17 years of age and come alone. That is called the Kindertransport. December the 2nd, the first Kindertransport arrived in England. 10,000 children were saved. 90% of all those children never saw their parents again. This is the picture of the first children arriving in England, and this is the lady who took me in. I remember the day I left. In the railway station, we were in the train, the windows tightly closed. I'm inside, my mother outside. For 4 agonizing hours, the train stood there. I was afraid to get away from the window because I was afraid I'm going to lose her forever. That's over 80 years ago. And to this day, I cannot stand anybody seeing me off. It left that impression on me of seeing my mother there. You know, I remember my aunt had 4 children, having a violent argument with my mother. She called my mother a rotten mother. How can you set your children away? How can you do that? You know, until I became a mother, did I realize they were both right. What a mother wants to do, hold you close. Then we went by boat over the channel to England. It was quite a culture shock. Everything was different. But you had to be in your best behavior. I was afraid they might send me back. So I had to learn the language. And And the lady who took me in did not only take me in to save my life, she wanted to save my soul. I should accept Jesus Christ as my Savior. If I would have been younger, not come from a traditional Jewish home, would have been so easy. A new country, a new language, why not a new religion? But I was 15, I knew who I was. And I went to church twice on Sunday. It was very peaceful and I enjoyed going. But I never walked away from my religion because otherwise Hitler would have won. And we did some war work. I worked in the aircraft factory making wings of airplanes. And of course, then we had the war started. We had the blitz, we had the bombing. So it was very difficult. You're always worried. Once war broke out, we had no communication with my parents. I had no idea where they are. The end of the war, I remember when the war was over and the newsreels came out of the British and the American and the Russian liberating the camps, and we saw all those dead bodies. I said, well, it could be my parents. We had no idea, particularly in one movie house where a lot of the refugees were living. They were fainting and screaming in the movie when they saw the newsreels. It was scary. And the Germans kept very good records when people were transported, how they died. So the Red Cross and organizations had the list, and people went every day to find out where their loved ones perished. So I know that we didn't know anything about my parents, and I really had nightmares about the camps, about the newsreels I saw. It took 4 months. We got a letter from the Red Cross. Was afraid to open it because it means either they're dead or alive. They went to hell but survived. So as I said, my immediate family, we all survived. But I told you my aunt, who had the 4 children, who called my mother, godmother, they all perished. I had a lot of aunts and uncles and cousins. No idea whatever happened to them, never heard of them again. I was married in London. My husband was in the British Army, and he was a refugee from Germany. And he always wanted to come to America. So I came to the United States in 1947. I have 2 children and 4 granddaughters. You know, it took for most survivors a long time until we could talk about it. We're telling you the story of the Holocaust to show you where hate can lead to. Don't be a bystander. If something happens, speak up, be an upstander. If more people would have spoken up, it might not have happened. We need more education of history because some of the people never heard about the Holocaust, didn't know, and that's why it's so important to keep our stories alive, because it's the only way I feel we can prevent it from ever happening again.
Well, my name is Gail Muzak. First, I would like to thank you, Dr. Flug, for this opportunity. And also, that was my pleasure and an honor to me. sorry, to meet Miss Anita Weisbord. The fact that she said she was in the train, staring at the window at her mom. She had to left everything behind. Her mom, yeah, yes, and she didn't even know where was England. Maybe in a space. And that was really hard. And I can't even imagine myself because I'm almost 3 years ago. 3 years ago, from the earthquake, I was in Haiti, and me and my mom, me and my family, we lost everything, and that was really hard to leave the country and to come here. And I already know how it feels to leave your family and to come here like knowing you don't know anybody and you have to go.
But I think any child in any age who has to leave everything behind, going to a strange country, not knowing the language, not knowing who is going to take care of them. And there were 2-year-old and 3-year-olds on the transport to England who had no idea what happened to them. They just cried for their mothers. They couldn't understand. And I think I always say that my mother gave birth to me twice, when I was born and when she had the strength and the foresight to send me out on the kindertransport.